Welcome. In front of me is a VIVO X90 Pro, and today I'll show you several tweaks and tricks you can do on this phone. So without further ado, let's just open up our settings. And we're going to start off with the home screen transitions, which will be located under the dynamic effects. Here we have the home screen transition animation. We have a couple to choose from. So this just implies like the speeds at which it does this kind of opening. So when you tap on an app, and it just kind of zooms in like this and also closes out the same way. So you can have it, for instance, comfortable, which means just slow. I don't have medium, which is the default one, and efficient. Damn, their naming here is just on point. But yeah. Obviously, you can also turn it off altogether, which will mean that when you tap on an app, it just automatically pops full screen. So there we go. Now, when you select one of them, just click apply, and that's all you need to do. Now, below that, we also have the home screen entering animation, whatever. So this is just kind of like, I assume, for the drawer of applications. Though some of them, like this is for the drawer, at least it looks like it. Well, this looks like it's for the home screen when you go home. So, not exactly sure which ones is it going to be changing. Let me know, we can just apply it. Something tells me that the first option that I have selected right here to be none affects the other animation. So let's see the theory for this. Nope, not exactly sure which one it's affecting at this point. Anyway, let's just move over to the next one. So we're going to navigate into the settings. And we're going to then go to display and brightness, and here we have number one, the dark mode. We have the switch to actually like swap between them permanently, or when you tap on it, it allows you to select it on a sunset to sunrise or on a custom schedule. So you can then have both light and dark mode throughout the day, and the phone will switch between them depending on the time, or well, basically the time of day. Now moving on a little bit further down the list in the display and brightness, we have the status bar, and in here notification method. This allows you to change how notifications are displayed right here. So right now I have like 3 notifications. They're all separated into this specific icons, but I can, for instance, compound it into just 3. So it shows me the amount of them, but doesn't really show me like the icons for each individual one. Or I can hide it all together for a cleaner look on my status bar. Now moving on to the next option is the refresh rate. So it's still under the display and brightness. We have the screen refresh rate. By default, it is set to the smart, which will swap between all the refresh rates, so 60, 120, and possibly even lower than 60 when, well, images kind of like right now, which is not moving. I don't recall if this has LTPO display. If it does, then it drops probably to like several frames, which is really good. Now, I'm showing this option specifically for people that just want to save battery life on their device. If you do, I recommend changing it to 60. Now this will make it so your device kind of looks a little bit choppier when you're scrolling up and down, doesn't look as smooth. But the upside of this is that your battery, when you have screen on, will last a little bit longer than with the smart or 120. Now when it comes down to it, I don't recommend selecting 120 at all, because Smart Switch utilizes it anyway. But when it doesn't need to, when nothing is moving on a screen like, sorry for the earthquake, when nothing is moving on the screen like right now, then it will just drop it down below, I think 60 or up, or just to 60, which will give you a better battery life compared to just a straight up 120 all the time, even when nothing is happening. Now moving on to the next thing, it's a little bit lower. We have two things that will improve your visual. So we have a screen resolution. You can select it to be a little bit higher, though keep in mind this will probably consume a little bit more of your battery, and it's not actually a great bump, so chances are you might not actually see that much of a difference. We're going from 2400 to 1080, then to a little bit more, which is 28 by 1260. So not big increase in resolution, but still some people might be interested in just cranking as much as they can out of their phone. And below that we also have visual enhancements along with visual improvements, which just kind of changes how the images look like on this device by adding a little bit more saturation, a little bit more pop to the images. Now I do have to admit the comparison that they chose right here is very misleading. So this is really bad photo to showcase this, because it's capturing in the effect the sunset that is happening right here, which you don't see on here, so you don't have a comparison between them two. Now if, for instance, this line would have been like smack in the middle right here, that would give you a little bit of a better understanding, but generally it does make the image look a little bit more appealing. Though I guess at the end of the day it could be preferential, so you might not exactly like the changes that it makes. But just know that it will make the image a little bit more colorful and give a little bit more color to it, along with trying to make it look a little bit deeper. So you can see that, actually probably can't really see because this image is a little bit bad as an example. But the shadows are a little bit more visible right here because they do light up a little bit. They try to tone down the exposure, or actually tone it up, I guess. And yeah, saturation is a little bit higher. Like I said, that setting is strictly preferential. Now, anyway, moving on to the next option. This one will be completely different. We can go into the settings and scroll down to RAM and storage, and here we have RAM. Now, I recommend turning that off. So we have extend RAM option, which basically uses 8 gigs of our actual storage of the phone as additional RAM for the device. Now we already have 12 freaking gigs in here. Extending it to 20 is just illogical, to be honest. Your computer most likely has 16 gigs of RAM, so a little bit less than this phone, or a little bit more than this phone has by default. Extending it to 20 is just completely pointless. Now the reason that is pointless, is because number one, this amount of RAM is just a gimmick for manufacturers to try to sell you a phone that has more RAM than you actually need. We don't use 12 gigs. Right now we're using 5, and honestly I'm highly doubtful that it actually uses effectively that 5. I think it's just here to kind of show you like, oh, you're not doing anything, you're using already 5. But like I said, if we probably open up a bunch of applications, this won't change that much. And extending your RAM with a storage isn't as effective as just having RAM itself anyway. The difference is RAM as a type of a storage which stores data onto it is significantly faster. We're talking about like uncomparably faster just to the storage that it now uses. So the way this works is, if you open up some apps and they have data that they want to store that exceeds the 12 gigs, normally it would just get rid of some other data that is like older and substitute it with the new one. With here, it's gonna start overwriting it onto the storage, which the storage is much slower compared to the RAM itself, meaning that when you go to app that needs to utilize whatever data is being stored on this portion with the 8 gigs, that app will work slower. It will open up slower than it would have with the 12 gigs. And now the question probably would be a good one to test it out is when an app is pulling out or opening up from actual storage compared to RAM, if it's faster to have it not run from this and just straight up open from being fully closed, or to utilize this, because something tells me it might open up quicker as a completely closed app when it goes over the 12 gigabytes limit rather than utilizing this. This is just a speculation, could be correct, could be not correct. But anyway, I would just recommend turning that off now. Unfortunately, I'm not going to do this right now because it does require me to restart the device for this to take effect, which I don't really want to do because I have one more thing to show you. which is a power button. Now by default we do have Google Assistant, which I don't use myself. So if you're the type of person that isn't using the Google Assistant at all, which I assume might be a decent amount of people. Obviously, if whoever you are watching this right now, you use Google as a method to, like, you know, give it some commands and stuff like that, great. This probably won't be for you. This is for basically everybody else who doesn't like this. So here you can either access it quickly by going into the settings and changing right from here when you hold the power button. This is just the first time around. So if you get rid of it later on, you won't be getting this pop-up anymore. So to change it later on, we will just navigate into the settings, shortcuts and accessibility, and then we're looking for long or press and hold power button. And here we're gonna select press and hold power button. Gonna choose the enable the power and emergency mini. And there we go. So now we can utilize our power button as an actual power button. So anyway, with this being said, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.